Hello, beautiful souls, divine beings. Welcome in this lovely space with me. Today I feel inspired to share some words about collective readings. Because the internet nowadays it's loaded with collective readings. There are a lot of readings through tarot, through oracles, through runes. There is a lot of spoken channeled messages. There is a lot. And as I do them myself, I do feel I want to share some words about it. About the accuracy and about how to handle them or how to approach them as a viewer. Now, about the accuracy. As I see it, in essence, we are one being. We are all one being. And in the illusion of time, we forgot about that. So we moved out of the consciousness of being that one being into individualistic consciousness. Now, as a collective, slowly, we are remembering that we are that one being. So as a collective, we are moving out of this individualistic consciousness back into the consciousness of being that one being. Out of individualistic consciousness back into the consciousness of one. And the more as a collective we are remembering that we are that one being, the more we are going back to the consciousness of being that one being, the more accurate these collective readings also become. Because as an individual, seen through the eyes of an individualistic consciousness, if you look upon one lifetime of one individual, then this individual will move through certain core themes in their lifetime. If you look upon the lifetime of another individual, then also this other individual will move through certain core themes in their lifetime. But if you compare them with each other, then the core themes are very different. They can be the same, but mainly they are very different. So seen through the eyes of an individualistic consciousness, if you compare one lifetime of one individual with the lifetime of another individual, then it all is kind of separate and all kind of spread. Or at least it seems like that. Now, as a collective, seen through the eyes of a collective consciousness, we are also, all of us, moving through certain core themes. And it seems like, seen through the eyes of a collective consciousness, that these themes are becoming very similar. The details, the people, the situations and circumstances, they are still very unique and still very personal. And we are not moving through the same themes at the same time. Still, the themes are there. So seen through the eyes of a collective consciousness, if you compare one lifetime of one individual with another lifetime of another individual, then these lifetimes become very similar, less separate and less spread. So as a collective, the more we are moving out of this individualistic consciousness back into the consciousness of being that one being, the more similar our consciousness becomes. The more similar these core themes become. The more similar our lifetimes become. And also the more accurate these readings become. And on top of that, more and more people are really tuning into these readings. More and more people are watching it, are viewing it, are listening to these collective messages, which also allows for personal details to come through in a collective reading. It allows for a reader who is stepping into the collective consciousness to pick up on personal details. So also the details become more and more accurate. Now, how to handle them or how to approach them as a viewer. The first thing I really want to point out is that you at all times have to remind yourself that it's still a collective reading. It's a reading picked up by a reader who is stepping into the collective consciousness. So even though your details may come through in a reading, remind yourself it's still a collective reading. So if you are really looking for guidance and advice on your personal unique situation, then go for a personal reading. Now, if a reading catches your attention, if a reading speaks to you, if it triggers you by a certain picture, by the message that is there, by a certain symbol, by the time it shows up, if a reading catches your attention, there is a message in there for you. Otherwise, it would not catch your attention. But be true. Be true and honest with yourself, because if you are watching reading after reading after reading, this might be a form of escapism. And this is not what these readings are meant for. This is not how we should handle them. But if you are watching a reading from time to time, and a reading really speaks to you, then there is a message in there for you. Again, otherwise it would not catch your attention. Now, our intuition and our own discernment. I like to call it our inner GPS. Our inner GPS is always at all times communicating with us. It's always interacting with us. And it interacts with us in a very subtle way. And it's very unique and very personal for each and every individual. So if you are in a point in your life where it's still not clear for you how your inner GPS interacts with you, then you can use these readings as a tool to practice. Because a lot of these readings, they offer you a choice. You have to pick a certain pile, you have to pick a certain card, you have to pick a certain symbol. A choice is being offered. And as our intuition is always speaking to us, it also speaks to us when a choice is being offered. So if you want to practice with your intuition, you can go into these readings, tap into your intuition, and ask what is the best choice to make. You choose something, and then you go into these readings, and then you notice that there are a lot of things that are really speaking to you. Maybe the whole reading. So in that moment, you know that you were listening to your intuition and not to your mind. Because that's the thing. Our intuition is always at all times interacting with us. But then our minds can come in between and make us doubt. So you can use these readings to practice with that. And the more you practice, the more you will become aware of these subtle signs that have been given to you or that are being given to you by your inner GPS. You will become more and more conscious and more aware of how your personal, unique inner GPS is interacting and communicating with you. Also, according to discernment, these readings are a very good tool to train your own discernment. And discernment in the sense of really knowing what is for you and what is not for you. So it's about going into these readings and from a very honest and true place within yourself, feel. Watch a reading, listen to a reading, and feel. Feel into these subtle signs that also there are being given to you when you watch or when you listen to a certain reading. And to really feel, this is for me and this is not for me. This is speaking to me, this is not speaking to me. This resonates with me, this doesn't resonate with me. So instead of trying to make the whole story fit, you learn to pick out the things that are really for you and to leave the rest for someone else. So for both your intuition and your own discernment, it's a very good tool to practice. And this is according to the readings. Now, according to the readers, every reading, it's a two-way exchange. You have the reader and you have the viewer. And the reader is the one that picks up, channels through certain situations, certain scenarios, certain possibilities, guidance, advice. The reader picks up the messages and then brings it into a reading. Now, as a viewer, it's good to remind yourself that in a reading there is always a personal aspect involved from the reader. Because the ideal is to be a completely clear channel. To be a completely clear channel, to function as a vessel, to bring through the messages as clear as possible. But we all have a very unique blueprint inside, all of us. We carry a very unique blueprint. And it's this unique blueprint that will translate the message into a reading. So the messages come through, and then it's this unique blueprint that will translate it and bring it into a reading. So it becomes like a merging of these two. And in this unique blueprint, there are also the personal interests of a specific reader involved. And according to the readings, it also involves the choices that this specific reader makes according to the guidance that they get. What do they choose to connect to? What do they choose to channel in? Do they connect to past loved ones? Do they connect to ancestors? Do they connect to cosmic beings? Do they connect to light beings? Do they connect to angels? Do they connect to God, Source, Spirit? So this is all very depending on the reader itself. And as I said, the ideal is to be a completely clear channel. To be a completely clear channel to bring through the highest possible, clearest guidance. That's the ideal. To be a completely clear channel to bring through the highest possible, clearest guidance. But to be able to bring through the highest possible, clearest guidance, it also asks for a certain commitment and a certain dedication to do so. And not every reader is as committed and as dedicated to do that. Which is okay. But there again, it's up to the viewer to really use your own intuition and to use your own discernment also according to the reader. According to the reading and according to the reader. And as I said, if it's still not clear for you how your intuition and how your discernment interacts with you, then you can use these readings as a tool to practice. And once it's clear for you how your inner GPS interacts with you, then also your intuition and your own discernment will speak to you very clearly about the reader, about the readings and about the reader. And it will tell you very clearly, this is for me, this is not for me. This speaks to me, this doesn't speak to me. This resonates with me, this doesn't resonate with me. One thing I want to add is a reader channels through a certain situation, a certain scenario. He or she sees certain possibilities that are open for the viewer, and the reader gives guidance and the reader gives advice. But also there it's up to the viewer, what do you do with this advice and guidance that has been given? Because as a viewer, if certain possibilities are open for you, but you do something completely different than the guidance and the advice then that has been given, then also your possibilities will change. Remind yourself that we are the creators of our own life by the choices that we make. We have been given free will to choose in each and every moment, and it's by the choices that we make that we create our own realities, or at least the perception of it. So, to put this all together, I do believe in the accuracy of these collective readings. The more we are moving out of this individualistic consciousness back into the consciousness of being that one being, and the more people are tapping into these collective readings, the more accurate these collective readings become, and the more accurate the details also become. And according to how to handle it and how to approach it, as a viewer, at all times remind yourself that it's still a collective reading. And always, at all times, use your own intuition and use your own discernment according to the readings and according to the reader. And do know, if a reading speaks to you, if it catches your attention, there is a message in there for you. Otherwise, it would not catch your attention. So, I hope this was helpful. I'm sending lots of love, lots of light, lots of peace and blessings for each and every one.